Hello everyone, Film Productions is back again with a new video and today we are going to cover NCRT Class 6 Chapter 11 that is Buildings, Paintings and Books. Before proceeding ahead, I would just like to request you all, whoever is watching this video currently, please like, share and subscribe to this channel as it would be very supportive and stay tuned for my upcoming videos. So let's get started with this particular chapter. So in the previous chapters, we have been talking about iron. The very first existence of iron came into presence about 3,000 years ago, and its usage became more prominent and prevalent around 2,500 years ago. And we have seen how the usage of iron has actually increased the production of crops because people started to use iron plowshare in their agricultural production. So we have also been talking about the craftsmen were being involved into making so many crafts, jewelry, pots, buildings. So today also we are going to look dig deeper into their arts and their outstanding skills, and we will be looking at iron pillars and the buildings and the paintings that these craftsmen have been doing for since ages. Okay, so here is one of the outstanding skill that we can see of a craftsman, that is of an iron pillar in the form of an iron pillar. Okay, and this iron pillar is actually was made about 1500 years ago, and it is suggested that it belonged to the dynasty of Gupta rulers named Chandra. And the most important um, feature about this particular iron pillar is that although it has been made about 1500 years ago, it has not rusted in all of these years. So let's dig deeper about metals and let's know more about metallurgy. So ancient Indian metallurgists, they have hugely contributed to the metallurgical history of the world. And talking about the Harappan period, so Harappan people actually have been aware about certain metals like copper, tin, they were, however, not aware about the iron, and their later successors who came into picture, they actually belong to the Iron Age. They are considered to be belonging to the Iron Age because iron was known to them. Okay. And India has been usually known for producing the highly advanced type of iron, poached iron, wrought iron, and cast iron. And from the archaeological excavations, also it is shown and it is found that the Harappan craftsmen were masters and they had vast knowledge of copper metallurgy. Okay, so let's move ahead. Let's talk about buildings in brick and stone. So, firstly, stupas. What are stupas? Stupas basically means mound. Okay, something of a mound-like a structure. Okay, stupa is that. Okay, so stupas can actually be of a varied shape and sizes. It can be round, it can be tall, it can be big and small. Okay, and and all these stupas have certain common features. Okay, for example, all the stupas will carry a will have in the center a box like structure, a casket like structure, and that box will be at the center of the stupa, and it will actually it is considered to be very sacred because it contains bodily remains such as teeth, bone, or ashes, maybe of Buddha or his followers, and or whatever things that they used in their time period. Okay, maybe the precious stones and the coins, and these are considered to be really sacred. Okay, and so these stupas are also an example of the skills of the craft person because it reflects us. We can see in the form of how these galleries and pathways and the sculptures that they have created and developed and made in these and it is a reflection of their skill. Okay, and this particular image is of a great stupa at Sachi, Madhya Pradesh. Okay, so looking at these stupas, you might think that this has been built. I mean, was this stupa actually belong to the same time period? No, it actually over the period of time, many rulers came and then they used to, build over the particular remaining of the stupas. Okay, for example, the brick mound of this great stupa actually belonged to the time of Ashoka. However, the railings that you are seeing over here and the pathways, all of it, it was added later on by the later. Okay, and here in the next picture is the sculpture from Amravati. Okay. So every sculpture shows a kind of a story. It depicts a kind of a story. It is telling all the lives of the people who used to live in the villages or the cities. Okay. It used to reflect that and it actually reflects that. Okay. So I was talking about a box. So that box is called as a relic casket. Okay. And this is further covered with the earth. And later on, a layer of mud bricks or maybe baked bricks are added on the top. And then after all of that, a dome-like structure was sometimes covered with carved stone slabs as well. Okay. And in the previous photos, there are, certain pathways where the devotees can move around. So those pathways are called the padakshin. Okay. And these were laid around the stupas. Okay. And surrounding all the rails. So the entrance of the path was through the gateways, and the devotees used to walk around the stupas in clockwise direction. Okay, and this was actually a mark of devotion for them to move around, to circle around the stupa. Okay, and both the railings and gateways were decorated with lots of sculptures and art, as you can see. Okay, moving ahead. So now during this period only there were so many Hindu temples also that were being built. And in the previous chapter we have covered that and during the time of Bhakti period and there were certain deities which became more popular like Vishnu, Shiva and Durga. And we see that their temples are being built during this time. Okay. So just like the stupas, there is one central thing and a boss-like structure is being placed over there. So in the similar fashion, in temples also we see at the center there was a room and that room was considered to be very important and it has a name called Garbhagriha. Okay. And why it was important? Because here at the central position the image of the deity was placed. Okay, and from here the priest would perform the religious rituals and devotees offered the worship to their deity. Okay, and this actually is a temple from Bittergaon that is located in Uttar Pradesh. And here you can see this central part is the Garbhagriha, and above that there is a tower-like structure. Okay, so this tower-like structure is called a shikhar. Okay, so most temple they had also a space known as the mandapa. Mandapa is kind of an hall. Okay, this space. So where the people, the devotees can assemble and they can do their worship. Okay, so these are the temples of those times, and this is Aivole. Okay, this is Bittergaon that we just discussed. All right, Durga temple. These are some very popular temples that were being built over that period of time. Okay. Now, talking about how these stupas and temples were built. So, as I have said earlier as well, that stupas and temples, their building went from several stages. Okay, it took several period of time because obviously it is a very hectic task to build those temples, especially out of stone, because we have seen in the previous chapters how stones used to be carved out for making temporary shelters for the bhikshus and bhikshunis and for the like a monastery. All right. So first of all, you have to find out a very fine quality kind of a stone, and then you have to quarry it all along, and then you have to transport it, and you have to then shape it, carve it, and then place it very carefully. So all these things actually take time, okay? And also it is a very expensive kind of an affair. So kings and queens, they used to invest a lot in building these temple. So here you can see a temple. It is actually this entire temple is being carved out of a stone. Okay, so this used to take time. All right, and there were many a times people also used to give gifts. Okay, and that were used to decorate the building. And there were others also like merchants, farmers, garland makers, perfumers, smiths, and hundreds of men and women and who used to give certain kind of a donation or a charity kind of a thing so that these buildings or these temples can be built. All right, moving. Now let's look at the outstanding skill of the craftsmen in form of their painting. So Ajanta is the most famous place where several caves have been hollowed out of the hills over the centuries. Okay, and most of these monasteries were built for Buddhist monks, and these caves actually have been decorated with paintings and you can just imagine that these caves were actually dark. Inside, if you go inside the cave, it would be a very dark place. So how these people are using the kind of a color and material and so that it is still vivid, it is still very much uh, prominent. You can easily look at those images and how vivid it is. Okay. So here are the two pictures that have been built in the caves of Ajanta. All right, moving on. Now let's talk about what kind of books that people used to write about. And so we have earlier also looked at the two very famous epics like how the Mahabharata and Ramayana. Okay, so there were so many other epics also that were very popular in southern region in South India, also in North India. So the best known epics that were written were were in during this period. And epics, what is epics? Okay, so epics are basically a very grand and long position composition where you tell a story about a hero or a heroine or a woman is there, and it includes a lot of stories about gods as well. So, so similarly, a very famous Tamil epic was Silapadikar. Okay, and it was composed by a poet named Pilakko around 1800 years ago. So it was a story about a merchant who fell in love with another woman. However, when he moved to other city, he was accused of theft by the court jeweler and actually he was sentenced to death. Okay. So in vengeance and in order to take the revenge, his wife actually still loved him despite knowing all of that he fell for another woman. But and in order to take the revenge, she destroyed the entire city of Madurai. So this is considered to be a very famous Tamil epic. So this is the story in there. Okay. And then there is another Tamil epic that is known as Manimekalai. Okay. And it was composed by Satanar around 1400 years ago. And it actually describes the story of that man and the women that he fell in love with. Okay. So about their daughter. Okay. Moving. So recording and preserving old stories. So there has been many old stories that has been going on for centuries, but it has been composed later on. And one such stories are about Mahabharata and Ramayana. Okay, so there are number of Hindu religious stories that were also written around the same time, and it includes Puranas as well. Purana itself means old. Okay, Purana. So Puranas actually contain the stories about gods and goddesses like Vishnu, Shiva, Durga, or Parvati. And it also contained how these deities were worshipped. Okay. And these Puranas were written in very simple Sanskrit verses, and these can be heard by everybody. Okay. And why I'm emphasizing this fact that it can be heard by everybody, even including women and Shudras, because unlike this, Vedas were not allowed for these people. Okay, women cannot read Vedas and they cannot hear Vedas. And similarly, Shudras also were not included. However, in case of Puranas, it was included. Okay, so priests of the temple they used to recite all the verses from the Puranas, and people would come and listen to them. Now, talking about Mahabharata and Ramayana, so we know the story behind Mahabharata and Ramayana, and we have also seen in the previous chapter that how how Bhagavad Gita, part of Mahabharata, it actually emphasizes on devotion. Okay, so moving ahead. So now let's look at stories that were told by the ordinary people, other than the people who were actually writing it, and actually the court poets and other professionals. Let's look at the stories that were being told by the ordinary people. So from the previous chapters, we know about Jatakas. So Jatakas were something that were a kind of stories that were being told by ordinary men, and these were being written and were preserved um, by the monks. Okay, so ordinary people also told stories. They also composed poems and songs. They sang, they danced, they also performed plays. Okay, and these all has been preserved and collected, and so so the stories from the Jatakas, they were also often shown on the railings of the stupas. So the sculpture that we show on the stupas and the stupas railings, they actually depict something. They depict the life. Okay, so in form of paintings as well, that we saw in Ajanta. All right. So here is one such story that was being told by an ordinary man. All right. Moving ahead. So what was this period all about? Writing epics and poems and composing songs? And was there nothing scientific, and people were not discovering new things? No. People like Aryabhatta, he was considered to be a very famous mathematician and astronomer, and he wrote a book in Sanskrit that is known to be as Aryabhatyam. Okay, and he actually gave us a knowledge about the day and night and what causes the rotation of Earth on its axis. He also talked about sun and how it rises, how it sets. He also talked about the scientific explanation of the eclipses, and he even found a mathematical calculation of circumference of a circle. How can we actually calculate? Okay, then here we can see about the number zero. So actually numerals were there. People used to use various numerals like one, two, three, four. But zero was something that was invented in India. Okay, and later on it was adapted by the Arabs, and then it was spread to the other parts of the Europe. All right. And before that, Romans actually had their own system of counting, but their system of counting did not had zeros. Okay, let's talk about Ayurveda. So we all know about Ayurveda. That is a very well-known system of health science, and it was actually developed in ancient India. And there are two very famous practitioners of Ayurveda in ancient India, that is Charak and Sushruta. Okay, and they both wrote a book. One is Charak Samhita, okay, and it is a very remarkable book on medicine. And the other is Sushrut Samhita, and Sushrut Samhita again it talked about elaborate surgical procedures. So people were writing books on sciences as well. Moving back. So let's talk something about else that what is being invented in the other parts of the world. So we all know about paper. We write every day. We use paper every day. Okay. So paper has become a part of our daily life. But do you know where first paper was invented and the procedure of making paper was invented? So it was invented in China about 1900 years ago by a Chinese man named Kyle. Okay. So what was the procedure? So actually, what he did is he beat plant fibers and cloth, rope, and bark of trees, and then he soaked all of these in water. And after soaking it, he then pressed and drained and dried the pulp of it to create paper. And even today, how paper is being made today in this generation, it is still the similar process. Okay. So in the earlier chapters, we have seen how silk was also invented in China, and people of China, they kept it as a secret and they used to trade silk. Okay. And in the similar fashion, even the technique of paper making was kept as a secret. Okay. But later on, gradually it reached to Korea about 1400 years ago, and then to Japan. And also, Baghdad came to know about paper about 1800 years ago, and from Baghdad it spread to Europe, Africa, and other parts of Asia, including the subcontinent. Now, here are some important dates, okay, of the chapter. So, the first beginning of stupa building happened around 2300 years ago. Amravati, 2000 years ago. Kalidas wrote his poems about 1500 years ago. And the iron pillar, just we saw a very in the early video, a temple at Bittergaon that is located in Uttar Pradesh, paintings at Ajanta, Aryabhatta, all these were written around and made around 1500 years ago. Durga temple was built around 1400 years ago. So these are very important dates you need to remember in this particular chapter. Okay, all right, that's all with this particular chapter. Thank you so much. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up, share it, and please do not forget to subscribe.